Today, let's talk about a teaching strategy that's so powerful, it could literally double the rate of learning in your classroom. But it's also so delicate that if you get it wrong, you might actually be creating learned helplessness. Welcome back to Simplified Teaching, where we demystify pedagogy. Today, we are diving deep into the peer-reviewed evidence on defining success criteria. And that's really the heart of the matter, isn't it? The research is crystal clear that giving students a map to mastery is a total game changer. But, there's a really fine line between giving them that map and just carrying them to the destination. Too much support, what some are calling over-scaffolding, can completely shut down independent thought. So the big question is, how do we find that sweet spot? So to really get why this is such a big deal, let's just focus on one number for a second, 0.70. Now, in education research, an effect size of 0.40 is considered the gold standard for a strategy that has a real impact. So 0.70? That's massive. We're talking about the potential to nearly double the learning a student typically makes in an entire school year. The potential here is just, wow.
To really get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the foundational evidence, then we'll look at the danger of doing too much. After that, we'll check out a fascinating modern experiment, see where all this research collides, and then, of course, boil it all down into the big takeaways and your classroom action plan.
Okay, first things first. Let's establish the bedrock here. Why is defining success so incredibly powerful in the first place? For that, we're going to turn to a huge literature review that basically pulled together the findings from hundreds of different studies.
Now, what makes this Hanover research paper so beefy is its methodology. It's a review of over 250 publications. That gives us a real bird's-eye view of the entire field. And the core finding is just undeniable. Clear learning goals lead to huge gains. Yeah, the term formative assessment can be a little fuzzy, but the trend is so strong and consistent, we have to give its impact a 5 out of 5.
The logic here is just so simple and elegant. You can't hit a target you can't see, right? When students know exactly what excellent looks like, they have a clear destination. All of a sudden, every single activity, every piece of feedback, it all has context. They're not just, checking boxes and completing tasks. They're actively building towards a defined standard of mastery.
But what if that well-defined standard comes with way too much help? This brings us to a really crucial counterargument. This is the idea that more support, more structure, more guidance isn't always better. In fact, it can be downright harmful.
So this is where a school principal named Andy Gutierrez comes in. And he argues that in our rush to help students, we've actually started over-scaffolding, basically providing so much structure that we prevent any kind of productive struggle. Now, look, this is an expert opinion piece. It's not a controlled study, but its impact on how teachers think about this is pretty significant, so it definitely earns a 4 out of 5. This visual really breaks it down nicely. Think about it this way. Helpful scaffolding is temporary, right? It's designed to be removed, just like the scaffolding on a new building. It helps students tackle huge challenges and build their own independence. Over-scaffolding, though, that becomes a permanent crutch. It prevents the very struggle that leads to deep, meaningful learning.
Okay, so we've got these two powerful, kind of competing ideas, right? Clear goals are essential, but too much support is dangerous. So let's check out a really cool modern experiment that shows us how we might actually resolve this tension.
This study just came out in 2024, hot off the presses. Researchers took two groups of physics students. One group got the usual instruction, but the other group, they got this highly structured 5-week scaffolding intervention. And the results were insane. The intervention group more than doubled their scores on a test of higher-order thinking. Now, it was a quasi-experiment, so the groups weren't perfectly randomized, but they used statistical controls to make sure it was a fair fight. This is really powerful stuff. And check this out. This is the actual model they used in the study. See how it starts by setting clear objectives, just like the Hanover research told us to? But look at the flow. It moves from modeling and support towards a gradual reduction of support and finally independent practice. This isn't a permanent crutch at all. It's a cycle that's designed to make itself obsolete.
So let's just walk through that cycle. First, you set the target. Then, you show them how to hit it. You give them support and feedback while they try. And then, and this is the crucial step that prevents over-scaffolding, you intentionally start to pull back that support, which forces them to take on more of the cognitive heavy lifting until, boom, they achieve independence. The whole goal is autonomy.
And now for the proof taken right from the pages of the study. For each pair of bars, the control group is on the left and the experimental group is on the right. You can see a really clear difference across analysis, evaluation, and creation. But honestly, the overall results are where it gets really, really interesting.
This chart just boils it all down. The control group's average score was just under 5. The experimental group, the one with the scaffolding, their average was over 10. They didn't just learn more facts, their ability to think critically literally more than doubled. That is the power of scaffolding that is designed to be removed.
Okay, so we've looked at 3 pretty different perspectives here. So now, let's put them all in the ring together. Let's see where they agree, where they might disagree, and most importantly, why.
Now, here's the really crucial point. These sources don't actually contradict each other. Not really. Hanover's Big Review confirms that setting a clear target is vital. Gutierrez, the principal, warns us not to just carry our students to that target. And the Al-Nazi experiment gives us the beautiful synthesis, a model where temporary structured support acts like a bridge, helping students cross that gap on their own.
So if they don't really disagree, why does this feel like a debate? Well, it's because of what the research can't tell us. No study can give you a magic number for the tipping point where helpful support becomes a harmful crutch. A literature review shows a trend, an expert describes a problem he sees, and an experiment tests an intervention. But knowing exactly when to pull back that support for each kid, that requires your professional judgment.
Okay, so after digging through all this evidence, what's the big takeaway here? How do we distill all of this down into a clear, actionable framework that you can actually use?
Well, it really comes down to 3 things. Number 1, clarity is a catalyst. The evidence is just too strong to ignore. Defining success isn't optional, it is foundational. 2, structure unlocks higher-order thinking. This isn't about dumbing things down. It's about building a ramp to get to the complex stuff. And number 3, and this is probably the most important one, all support must be temporary. The whole goal of any scaffold is to make itself unnecessary.
Theory is great, but let's make this super real. Here are 3 concrete steps you can take in your classroom, like this week, to put this research into practice. Okay, your first action step is all about ownership. So for just one lesson this week, instead of handing students a rubric, try building it with them. Ask them, hey, what does an A+ version of this actually look like? This simple little shift transforms them from being passive recipients into active participants who are defining their own target. Second, get really intentional about making your support temporary. Go look at your next lesson plan. Find the scaffold you're providing, maybe it's a worksheet or sentence starters, and explicitly plan for how and when you're going to remove it. You have to make the removal of support a conscious part of your design.
And finally, try conducting a little scaffold audit. For all those supports you use regularly, checklists, graphic organizers, you name it, ask yourself that critical question from Gutierrez: is this preventing productive struggle? And then take it one step further. Empower your students. Offer them the choice to try the task without the scaffold first. I think you'll be surprised by how many are ready for that challenge.
Ultimately, it all comes back to this. Success criteria, scaffolds, they're all just different forms of a map. They show students the destination and the best path to get there. But they only work if we remember that our job is to provide the map, not to carry them to the destination.
And that's all for this breakdown on getting success criteria right. To make sure you keep getting these research-driven pedagogy explainers, just take a second to like this video and hit subscribe to Simplified Teaching right now. The next analysis drops next week. You are not going to want to miss it. See you then.